There is a kind of silence that is not an absence of sound, but the presence of something you have spent your whole life running from. Jesus practiced this, not as a spiritual performance, not as a meditation technique, but as the survival of the soul in a world that was trying to define him every second. 40 days in the desert, solitary mornings on the mountain, hours without a word before the crucifixion. And when his accusers screamed, when crowds demanded explanations, when even his disciples pleaded for clarity, he simply stopped. But stopping is not what you think, because at this very moment, as these words enter your ears, there is a voice in your head doing something, commenting, judging, planning what you'll have for dinner 5 hours from now, recalling that argument from 3 weeks ago. That voice hasn't slept since you were 4 years old. It has become you, or you think you have become it. What if that voice is not you? Eckhart Tolle spent 2 years sitting on park benches after that question destroyed and rebuilt him in the same night. He describes the moment as falling into a bottomless pit, but the pit had no bottom because no one was falling, just space. And at the center of that centerless space, something he could only call presence. The same presence Jesus carried when he stood silent before Pilate. The same one Buddha found beneath the tree. The same one that is here now reading these words through your eyes, but never participates in the noise inside your head. Have you noticed yet that there is a consciousness observing your thoughts, that this consciousness does not think, it merely witnesses? As the sky witnesses clouds, the sky never confuses itself with the clouds, even when they cover the entire horizon. But you have been confused. You believed you were the clouds, and now you live in fear that they will stop, because if there are no clouds, who are you? Therein lies the terror, the fear that keeps you talking, planning, remembering, projecting, the fear that makes you pick up your phone 12 seconds after waking up, the fear that turns silence into unbearable discomfort, because if the voice stops, what remains? An emptiness, a darkness, a dissolution of your identity. Jesus knew the answer, and that is why he sought silence as a thirsty man seeks water, not to escape the world, but to find what is real beneath the world. Mark records, "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed." But what is prayer without words? What is supplication when the mouth is closed and the mind does not formulate sentences? It is a descent to the bottom of the well. And at the bottom of the well, surprise, there is no bottom. There is a room without walls, a space that expands the further you enter it. Tolle calls this the eternal now. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven within you, not a place, a state, the natural state of consciousness when it stops pretending to be thought. But how? How do you descend 10 feet below the surface of your own mind while it screams that you have bills to pay, people to impress, pasts to review, futures to control? How did Jesus do this in the middle of the desert with Satan offering all the power of the world, which was in reality the voice in his head offering relief from discomfort through immediate gratification? He returned to the body, not as a concept, as an anchor, because the body only exists now. Thoughts live in the past and the future. Emotional pain lives in stories, but the sensation of your breath, the temperature of your skin, the weight of your hands, that can only happen in this second, and this one, and this one. So the technique is simple, so simple that your mind will reject it for not seeming sufficient. 3 minutes, just 3. You sit down, close your eyes, and place total attention, not thought, attention, on the physical sensation of the breath coming in and out. You don't control it, you don't improve it, you don't turn it into a spiritual exercise, you just feel it, as if it were the first time you were breathing, as if it were the last. And here is the trick, no one tells you. The voice will protest. It will say this is a waste of time. It will offer urgent thoughts about that email, that conversation, that plan. It will create an itch. It will invent pains. It will make you remember important things you need to do right now. Because the voice knows. It knows that if you descend into the well long enough, you will discover that it is just a mechanism, a learned pattern, an echo repeating in an empty cave, and it will lose its power. Not forever, not all at once, but for 3 minutes you will experience something Jesus experienced in the desert. You will fall into the room without walls, and in that room, something strange happens. The problem that seemed unsolvable 3 minutes ago didn't disappear, but it lost its emotional charge. The person who hurt you and still did what they did. But the story no longer bites. The future that terrified you, still uncertain, but it doesn't drag you out of the now. Why? Because you touched the only real thing that exists, pure consciousness, nameless, storyless, without the need to defend or prove or conquer, that which Christian mystics called the image of God in you. Not your personality, not your successes, not your beliefs. The naked consciousness that allows all of that to exist within it. Tolle discovered this at the depth of depression. One night at 29, the thought, "I can't live with myself anymore," repeated on a loop until he asked, who is the I and who is the myself in that sentence? If I can't live with myself anymore, then there are two. One that can't stand it and one that is unbearable. And which of the two is real? The question threw him into the well. He fell for days, maybe weeks, lost track of time. He sat on park benches feeling what he described as a peace too deep to be comprehended. People thought he had gone crazy. Maybe he had. But when he came out the other side, he was no longer the voice in his head. He was the space where the voice happened. And that space was vast, silent, unbreakable, like Jesus before Pilate. Aren't you going to answer? Don't you know I have the power to crucify you or to free you? And Jesus, nothing, not out of arrogance, not out of strategy, because in that silence he was immersed in the well, and at the bottom of the well there is no victim to defend, no ego to protect, just the presence observing everything without judging anything. But you don't need to be crucified, you just need to sit. 3 minutes. And do the hardest of all exercises, nothing. Don't improve your breathing. Don't visualize white light. Don't repeat mantras. Just fall. Let the mind scream and realize that you, the real you, are not screaming. You are hearing the scream, and what hears the scream cannot be the scream, and something will break, not dramatically. No celestial lights or mystical ecstasies, just a small crack in the identification with the voice, a space of air between you and your thoughts. And in that space, for the first time in decades, you will breathe as free consciousness, not as a character playing your life, as life itself observing the character. Jesus kept returning to this, again and again and again, not because he reached enlightenment and stopped, but because the voice doesn't give up. It is evolutionary. It was made to keep you alive, alert you to dangers, plan food and shelter. But in a world where there are no lions to run from, it creates mental lions. It turns meetings into death threats. It turns silence into rejection. It turns the now into a battlefield between past and future. And you die 1,000 times without ever having lived, because living, truly living, only happens now, not in the thought about now, in the sensory now, the temperature of the air, the background sound, the texture of the clothes on your skin. This is not poetic, it is literal. Your entire life can only happen in this moment. The past is memory, the future is imagination, the now is the only portal to the real. And Jesus knew this. That's why he said things the mind cannot process. Do not worry about tomorrow. How can we not? Observe the lilies of the field. Why? The kingdom of God does not come with observable signs, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Within where? In the anatomy? In the physical heart? No, in the room without walls, that spaceless place that opens when you stop identifying with thought. When you descend into the well and discover that the well is infinite, and you are the well and the well is pure consciousness, witnessing everything without being anything specific. But the mind hates this, because the mind survives through definition. You are your roles, father, daughter, professional, victim, winner. You are your story, what hurt you, what you conquered, what you still need to prove. You are your opinions, your beliefs, your preferences. What if all of that is just a cloud passing in the sky of consciousness? If the sky was never touched by any cloud, no matter how dark, then who are you when you stop thinking about who you are? That was the question in the desert. Satan was not an external demon. It was the voice offering identity. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. Prove it. Demonstrate. Use power. Build ego. And Jesus replied with silence, not because he rejected power, but because he didn't need to prove anything to the bottomless well inside him. Do you need to? Do you need to prove you are lovable, successful, intelligent, important? What if you didn't? What if for 3 minutes you experienced existing without proving anything, without improving anything, without conquering anything, just consciousness perceiving the moment? It feels like death. To the mind, it is death. Death of the character, death of the story, death of the past, defining the present. Tolle calls this dying before you die. Jesus called it losing your life to gain it. Same thing. Dying to the identification with thought and discovering that what dies was never real. It was just a learned pattern. So you sit down, 3 minutes, timer on your phone if you need it, and you begin. Eyes closed, attention on the breath, not forced, not deep, natural, and you feel air entering through the nose, chest expanding. Pause, air going out, chest relaxing. Pause, again, again, and the voice will start. This is ridiculous. I'm wasting time. I have to deal with that. Why does my knee hurt? Am I doing this right? And here is the secret. You don't fight the thoughts. You don't try to stop them. You just notice them. Ah, thought. As if you were sitting by the side of a road watching cars go by. The cars are not the problem. Identifying with the cars and being dragged away by them is the problem. So you just observe. Thought about the past. Worry about the future. Judgment. Planning. And you return to the breath. Again and again and again. And at some point, perhaps for 2 seconds, there is an opening, a gap, a moment where there is no thought, and you are still here, conscious, present. And in that moment, you touch what Jesus touched in the desert, what Tolle touched on the park bench, the room without walls, the bottomless well, the presence that was never born and will never die because it is not in time. And everything changes, not because you became enlightened, but because you realized for a second that there is a dimension of you immune to psychological suffering. Your problems haven't disappeared, but there is a part of you that has never been touched by them. Like the deep ocean is never disturbed by surface waves, and you can return there, always, at any moment, 3 minutes or 3 seconds, in traffic, in the middle of an argument, before bed. Just stop being the voice and be the listener of the voice. Just fall into the well. And the well holds you because the well is you, the true you, storyless, fearless. Just here. Jesus practiced this until he could do it in any situation. That's why he slept during the storm on the boat while the disciples panicked. Not because he was brave, but because he was immersed in the presence, and in the presence there is no storm. There is only what is happening now. Wind, water, movement. Without the thought we are going to die, there is no fear. Just phenomenon occurring. Can you live like this? Probably not all the time. The voice is strong. It's been trained your whole life. But 3 minutes a day, that's all. 3 minutes of falling into the well. And gradually you realize you can access that space faster. That you can stop in the middle of the day, take 3 breaths with total attention, and touch the room without walls. And the room transforms you. Not because it adds something, but because it removes false identification, like cleaning a dirty mirror. The mirror doesn't get better. It just becomes able to reflect without distortion. And when you stop being the voice, you can hear things the voice never let in. Intuition, wisdom, compassion, creativity, not as effort, as the natural arising of the silent space. Tolle says all true doing comes from being, and being only happens now. So Jesus' technique is not about becoming better. It's about stopping pretending to be what you are not, stopping being the compulsive voice, and resting in the consciousness that has always been here, observing, free, whole. 3 minutes. What does it cost? Nothing. What does it demand? Everything. Because it demands that you release the identity built over decades of compulsive thought, that you fall into the void that is not empty, that you trust there is something to hold you even when there is nothing. And there is. There is pure consciousness, the spaceless place, the formless presence, that which the mystics found after years of practice, and that Jesus accessed naturally because he never forgot. He knew he was the well, not the waves on the surface. That's why he could say, I and the Father are one, without arrogance, because at the bottom of the well there is no separation, There is only the one observing itself through infinite forms, and you are one of those forms, but not just the form, also the observer, also the space, also the silence beneath every word you have ever said or will say, and that silence is waiting, not impatient, because it is not in time, just waiting for you to stop long enough to realize that it has always been here. So sit, now, not later, not when you finish reading, now, 3 minutes, eyes closed, attention on the breath, and let the voice scream. Let it call you ridiculous, a loser, a dreamer, and realize it is screaming alone. Because you, the real you, are just observing, from the bottom of the well, from the room without walls, and in that space, something ancient awakens, not new, ancient, prior to the first thought, prior to the first fear, what Jesus found on the mountains at dawn, what Tolle found when his mind collapsed, what is available to you if you stop running for 3 minutes, and when those 3 minutes end, something will be different, not dramatically, no cosmic revelations, just an almost imperceptible lightness, as if a weight you carried your whole life had lifted for a moment, and you didn't know you were carrying it until it disappeared. That weight is identification with thought, and it will return, but now you know you can let go again. Tomorrow, 3 minutes, and the next day, and the day after, and one day you will realize you are no longer fighting life, not because life got better, but because you stopped resisting what you cannot change and started changing what you can, your identification with the voice. And without the voice commanding, life flows, not perfectly, but naturally, like water descending a mountain, and you become what Jesus was, not a saint, not an unreachable enlightened one, but someone who knows how to return home. And home is not a place, it is the silence, the room without walls, the bottomless well, the eternal presence observing everything without being touched by anything. 3 minutes. That is all that separates you from who you truly are. But there is something no one explains about those 3 minutes, something you only discover when you try for the first time. When you close your eyes and begin to pay attention to the breath, the first thing that happens is chaos, absolute mental chaos, as if the act of observing the mind had woken up all the demons that were sleeping. Thoughts explode from all sides, memories you didn't even know you had, worries that didn't exist 2 minutes ago, and your first reaction is, I can't do it. My mind is too fast, too agitated. This doesn't work for me. But that is the point. You weren't creating the chaos. You were for the first time perceiving the chaos that was always there, like turning on the light in a dark, messy room. The mess didn't appear when you flipped the switch. It was always there. You just couldn't see it. And that's why most people live running, filling every second with stimulation, with sound, with activity, because when they stop, when they become silent, the mess reveals itself, and it is terrifying. Jesus faced this in the desert. 40 days, 40 nights, no distraction, no escape. And what appeared? Temptations, voices, offers of power, security, relevance. But those voices didn't come from outside. They came from within, from conditioning, from the part of him that still believed he needed to be something to have worth. And he stayed there, observing, without fighting, without engaging, just present, until the voices lost strength, because voices without engagement starve. They need you to believe them, to argue with them, to try to suppress them or follow them. But when you just observe, without judging, without reacting, they reveal themselves as what they are: electrical impulses in the brain, neural patterns, an echo of evolutionary survival that no longer serves its original purpose. And then comes the second discovery. After you survive the initial chaos of the 3 minutes, after you realize you can observe thoughts without being dragged by them, something more subtle appears: boredom. A deep, visceral boredom that seems worse than chaos, because at least chaos is interesting. At least it has drama. But sitting there, breathing, doing nothing, it seems unbearable. It seems like a waste of time. It seems empty, and it is. It is empty, but not the emptiness you fear. The emptiness you fear is the absence of meaning, the absence of value, the absence of you. But this emptiness is something else. It is the absence of compulsion, the absence of false urgency, the absence of the need to fill every second with doing, thinking, planning, remembering. And when you stop resisting this emptiness, when you fall into it, you discover it is not empty. It is space. Space to breathe. Space to exist. Space to be. Tolle spent months in this space. People saw him sitting on park benches, motionless for hours, and thought he had gone insane. Maybe he had, but not in the way they thought. He had gone insane to the world of the compulsive mind, and awakened to the world of pure presence. And in that world, boredom does not exist, because boredom is a creation of the mind that judges the present moment as insufficient. That says, this is not interesting enough. I need more. I need different. I need another place, another time, another experience. But the present moment is never insufficient. It only seems insufficient when you are looking at it through the filter of the mind that compares, that judges, that always wants something else. When you remove that filter, even for 3 minutes, the present moment reveals itself as complete, not perfect, complete. There is air entering your lungs. There is life pulsating in your body. There is consciousness witnessing all of it. And that is enough. It is everything. It is the miracle you stop noticing because you are busy looking for miracles elsewhere. Jesus tried to teach this, but people didn't understand. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. People heard that and thought he was talking about optimism, about faith that everything would turn out okay. But he wasn't talking about the future. He was talking about now. He was saying, the only moment where you can truly live is this one. The only moment where you can truly act is this one. The only moment where you can truly love, create, exist is this one. And when you lose this moment worrying about the next, you lose your entire life. Because your life is not a collection of futures that will one day arrive. Your life is an infinite series of nows, and you are missing every single one of them, unless you stop. 3 minutes. Just 3. And even in those 3 minutes you will want to quit. You will check the mental clock and think an hour has passed. You will think, enough. I tried. It doesn't work for me. And that is the critical moment, because that is exactly where the transformation begins. In the moment where you want to quit and you don't, where you feel the discomfort and you remain, where you face the emptiness and realize you can survive it. And then something breaks, a deep resistance, an unconscious belief that you need to be always doing something to have worth, that you need to be always producing, always improving, always conquering. And when that belief breaks, when you realize you can simply be without doing anything, without conquering anything, without proving anything, a strange peace descends upon you. Not the peace of getting what you want, the peace of no longer needing to want so urgently, the peace of realizing that you are already whole, not because you achieved all your goals, but because wholeness doesn't come from outside. It never did. You were whole before the first goal, before the first success, before the first failure. The consciousness that you are never needed anything external to be whole. It always was whole, and it continues to be beneath all the layers of conditioning that tell you otherwise. Jesus knew this at age 12. When his parents found him in the temple, conversing with masters who were astonished at his understanding, they asked why he had worried them, and he replied, "Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" At 12, he already knew. The Father's house was not the physical temple. It was the state of presence, the state of connection with the source, and he could access that at any time, anywhere, because the Father's house was the bottomless well within him, the room without walls, the space of pure consciousness that never abandoned him, even when everything else would, and everything else did abandon him. On the cross, even his disciples fled. Even his Father seemed to have forsaken him. My God, why have you forsaken me?" But what is fascinating is what comes next. "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." In the midst of total abandonment, in the midst of extreme physical and emotional pain, he could still access the well. He could still fall into the room without walls. He could still surrender to the presence because he had practiced for years, in silence, in the desert, on the mountains, in the moments alone. He had descended into the well so many times that even on the cross he could find the way. Are you practicing now, or are you waiting for the cross to begin? Because the practice is not for when everything is calm. The practice is so that when everything falls apart, you know how to return home. So that when life betrays you, hurts you, confuses you, you have a place to return to. Not a physical place. The inner space of silence that no external circumstance can touch. And 3 minutes build that space. Not all at once, not magically, but gradually, like water shaping stone. Every day you sit, every day you breathe with total attention, every day you observe the mind without getting lost in it. You are digging the well deeper. You are expanding the room. You are strengthening the only thing that will remain when everything else is gone, the pure consciousness that you truly are. Tolle describes an exercise he learned during those months on the park benches. He would close his eyes and ask, "What will my next thought be?" And then he would wait. He would observe, like a cat watching a mouse hole, totally alert, totally present, waiting for the next thought to appear. And what happened? Nothing. For seconds, sometimes minutes, no thought would appear, because the mind cannot think when it is being observed so intensely. It is like the thief who cannot steal when he knows he is being watched. And in those seconds of non-thought, he had an experience. The experience of being conscious without thinking, of being alive, present, awake, without a single word in his head. And in that experience, he realized something that changed everything. Thought is not consciousness. Consciousness is what allows thought. Consciousness is the space where thought happens. And you can exist as consciousness without any thought. In fact, you exist as consciousness all the time. You just don't realize it because you are.